So today we're going to talk about electric fence. And if you're in a small garden in a small neighborhood, you probably don't want electric wires strung around out there. So I don't know what to tell you to do. There's a lot of things that people say work, but I've tried all kind of stuff in the past and never had much success with it. But the stuff I saw when I put this up said you needed to have some strands up and then one strand further out to kind of deter them from getting up close enough to jump over. I didn't put that one strand on the outside because I didn't want to worry about having to weed eat around everything or move it. And so I said, well, I'm going to try just these three and see how that works. So that's been about 5 years ago. Every once in a while, I'll have where a wire got stretched out, where one touched it and pushed and started to go and then backed off. Or in about October, or around here, late October, early November, and again, maybe around the 1st of January, you'll have a deer that's not from around here and hadn't been around it that'll come in at night looking for does, and I'll have to come out and put a piece of wire back up. And most of the time, with it being loose like it is, they'll stretch it on out, then it'll break. But it's stretched out enough, I just take a pair of pliers and cut it and twist it right back together. So most of, or pretty much all this, except for maybe one piece, is wire that I originally put up about 5 years ago. Last January, I shot one buck that come running out on the other side of the house, and when I came back up here later that day, I think he was a strange one that was out running through the night before, because we've got power lines that run right across the garden from the highway, and the insulated handle that you use, or that I use instead of a gate, that's where I put like those yellow pieces on the end if I want to take the wire down quick and easy. Anyway, he had done went through and hit the fence hard enough that he broke the wire, and one of those things went all the way up and slung around that power line. So I had to get the power company out here with a big long fiberglass pole to get it down. Kind of amazed them. They didn't think, they read it what the call was to come out here and work, and when they got here, they're like, well, I guess that really was true. You did have a deer come sling that thing up over the power line. But that kind of stuff's been rare. Once or twice a year, I'll have something like that, and it's a 5-minute fix just to cut it, twist it back together. So we're going to go look outside the fence on the other side now at some blackberries that we put out there about 4 years ago. And you'll see how they've kind of devastated them, and then we'll go over to the other side of the house to where last year we expanded some of our fence over there. These are outside of the fence, and you can see how pitiful they are right now. And I mean, in April they looked good. They were dark and green, leaves all over them, and this happens every year. You can see the top of that big green stem on a couple of them. It's just completely ate off, and I don't think there was even hardly a leaf on them a month ago. They finally started growing back, but we're right on the side of the 2-lane highway right here, and you would think that they might not mess with them that bad, but between this and the edge stuff growing along the edge of the woods, I'm happy they're not in the garden, but it's frustrating anything that we try to put right out here. So we got a few little trees and all we planted out here, and said I'll go a year or two and not mess with putting up any fence over here. Everything went fine, I would say, for about a year, year and a half, and then the second spring when these little old pear trees started budding out and got some leaves on them. I would say within one night they ate every darn leaf off of them. The other problem I had, I got some blueberries up there that they never messed with. And then old bucks started rubbing on them more than they did these trees, which is unusual. I've seen them rub plenty of trees, but not little old spindly bushes. So they about tore them down. So I said, all right, that's it. So I did the same thing over here. I got 3 strands of wire, and it's loose. It'll move a little bit. The first night, as I expected, it was laying on the ground where they tore through there. So we put it back up, and the second night, never saw a sign of them. Third night, fourth night, everything was good after that. Well, this past year, and I will add, I think maybe 2 of these little old peach trees lived. The rest I had to replant some of everything, which is why everything's in such a small state after this many years now. Then we put in some muscadines back behind me last year, and I said I'm not even going to deal with that, so I'm going to extend this fence on out. So wasn't that big of a deal to do that. I've got the T-post separated pretty good, and I told her, I said, let's see what happens the first night. And sure enough, they come in on the other corner and knocked all 3 strands off, broke all the little plastic insulators off the corner posts. So nailed some new ones back in there, put the wire back up, and have never seen a sign of one trying to come through it since. They're smart enough if they learn it. It's a whole lot easier for them to go around. And another thing that's nice is they do come around. She comes out in the yard and sees them sometimes at night, but they go around it and have changed their path a little bit to where I'm not coming out here 3 and 4 times a year getting roadkill out of the front yard where logging trucks done took 1 or 2 out. And so they're still here, and just about every day somebody sees them. But they have respect for the electricity and they avoid it. And as long as I can keep them out until this stuff gets established, I'm happy with that. So while we're here, we'll go and look at these raised beds that we put in. So this is probably a controversial subject based on what I've seen on the internet. When I was a kid, which was a long time ago, people always grew stuff in tires or old tractor tires or whatever. And she's always wanted some raised beds over here, and I said, well, I can get these old excavator tracks for basically nothing. So I know a lot of people are worried about stuff leaching out of them or something like that. I'm not really too concerned as far as if some metal that was made in China and whatever kind of paint they use on it. If you want to think that's better for you, that's fine. I don't really have an opinion one way or the other. I think there's probably some risk with anything, but most of the folks born early 1900s that I grew up around, some of them got cancer and all, and they put burnt motor oil out around the muscadine vines to keep the weeds down, but they were generally pretty close to 90 by the time they got anything like that you might say that was the cause of it. And I don't really think it was, because a lot of them were mechanics and had their hands in motor oil all the time. Nobody wearing gloves back then. So I told her, I said, as long as you don't think they're ugly. A lot of people say stuff like that's ugly, but to us it's not. And really, we're about the only ones we're concerned about what somebody's thinking. If you're in an HOA or a backyard, you may not want any. But kind of wanted to show that, and also to mention that there's all kind of information out there about filling raised beds, and I never had any desire to grow in raised beds because I didn't want to have to deal with watering them. We've had some before here and there at some places we've lived, and they did all right. It's just had to keep them watered. So I went ahead and took a subsoiler and made me a trench on down here when we put them in it, where I can use the same drip tape components I'm using on the other garden. Hadn't had to use it really, and haven't used it much, but I've got it here in case I need to. The dirt that went in these, I had talked to a couple of places that had some soil for raised beds, and what you see on top is some wood chips that I've got that probably are 5 years old, had been sitting in a pile and rotting, and I couldn't get somebody out here when I wanted them out here with some of this bulk dirt for them. So there's an old guy that we've dealt with before for gravel, that he dug a pond out for somebody and said it was in a creek bottom, and I believe him, because I pulled a good many rock out of here that's nice and smooth. So may have got a good bit of the creek bottom. I've still got a pile of them over there I never have cleaned up yet. But so the bottom half of these things, that's all it is. And we'll get a picture up there of where I used it to fill some holes in the yard, and you can see it's gravelly, sandy stuff. But filled them halfway up with that, put these wood chips in there, put about 2 handfuls of lime in each one, and some chicken manure pellets that I already had, and planted this stuff a lot later than we did up in the other garden. So far, I would say, for not using the correct type of a mix like everybody says you should use, and for putting half full of wood chips, I'm pretty happy at this point, considering I'm not a real raised bed person. That's about how much weeding I've done so far out here, which is almost nothing. Just starting to get some squash on them. Stuck some extra sweet potatoes in, several of them. You can see kind of growing out the side, that if I need a few more slips to fill in, they seem to be doing good too. And what we're trying, you see all the stuff about growing squash more vertically, and so I've cut some leaves off those and had some bamboo poles. And it's not my favorite thing to do, as far as one problem is it's hard for me at this point to predict the growth, because this one, as soon as I pick those 2 tomorrow, I already need some more string, because they're going to be on up about that high. I tied them up 4 days ago, and they have really grown a lot this week. Like I said, planted all this late. I already had all the other garden planted, and reaching down in there in that spiny squash is bad enough picking them, but sticking my face down in there tying stuff up to get it to grow vertically is pretty bad too. One reason I wanted to do this is just to try something, and I saw one video a guy had about pickle worms, and this is, he was talking about what he does to prevent them, and he was cutting stuff off to get the more airflow. All that makes sense to me, that because if we've never had pickle worms much of a problem except for 1 year. The airflow seems to make them look healthier. I see very little insect damage on them. The only thing I've did, and the only thing I'm going to do, is I took a syringe and some straight BT and injected it into the stem of each one. I've heard that before. What I didn't know is you got to kind of get on up the stem a little ways. I thought it would be right at dirt level, but to get that needle to stick in there right and to take it, I had to come on up a little bit. But we're going to train them on up and see how they do in the next few weeks, and then we'll see if we do get some real bad bug damage. She's got her some, what What is this you got down here?
Roselle hibiscus.
So that's some of her roselle plants and some little dill and stuff that she had some extra seeds she planted. But really about all I'm seeing up here much of anything is like, you can see right here, that's about the only insects I'm seeing in this stuff. So we'll see if we expand this on out some, but it's kind of an experiment just to see how things go. So the whole point of this was just like I said, there's all kind of stuff out there that people say works and doesn't work, but so far for us, 3 strands of wire that I can drop and come in and out whenever I need to is simple, and it does the job for us. So if we start having any problems, I'll make sure to come show what's happening. But at this point, everything's looking good and nothing's getting ate. So we're going to keep doing like we're doing.